Welcome to the Facebook Live. I am Alex Hutton from Green Solar Academy. My guest is Christopher Steinbach. He is the technical sales and marketing representative for Renusol in South Africa. Renusol is actually one of our longest standing technology partners at Green. And this means that they provide the equipment, the mounting structure equipment that installers will come and train on when they train at our academies. So if you come and do your PV mounted training at one of our academies, then the Renusol product is one of the products that you'll be working on. Christopher, I thought let me just introduce what our topic is going to be. Let's first introduce our topic, right? We're going to be chatting about mounting structure tonight and its importance as the foundation of your solar installation. We're hoping to cover topics like the consequences of weak or insufficient mounting. We want to talk about the mechanical or civil knowledge or skills that you might need to learn in addition to the electrical skills that you already have to install a PV system. We maybe touch on what you could be opening yourself up to or your client up to in terms of insurance liability if you are not installing to code. And we're going to do our best to make it riveting. I put that joke in for you. Yeah. And we hope that you we hope that you will stay with us over the next hour. If you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat below the video, and when we have gaps, we will do our best to answer those questions. So, let me introduce Christopher Steinbach. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate being here and appreciate our partnership with Green Solar Academy. I think it's been a great road and journey we've had together, and I think, just seeing all the alumni and students coming through your academy from various backgrounds, really just excited about learning about this growing industry, especially in SA, is quite exciting. I come through regularly and do sessions with your students, and the interest is always very, very high. The levels of obviously understanding and knowledge is broad, and it's great to be able to participate in that. Just from my side as well, I mean, Renusol has been established in 1997, so it's almost 30 years old. Very well established in Europe and the UK, very much markets that have been growing and continue to grow for some time. We obviously get the benefit from Renusol's philosophy of simple solid service in the way they design their product. It's highly certified, high quality materials product, so it is on the upper end of the ranges of mounting structure, and for a reason. Our focus is on rooftop, it is on quality, it is on certification and after sale service, but we'll go into more of that.
Okay, so tell us about your background. Where do you come from, your educational background, and then,
I mean, I've been in the solar industry for some 15 years. I've got a business and technical degree. I've got a mechanical engineering background. It comes in handy in solar. You know, one always thinks of electrical engineers and the likes in solar. I mean, structural is very important. As we see on utility scale projects, and mechanical obviously on the mounting, there's a lot of aspects there that are often overlooked. So I mean, I've played in the field in various sectors. I've been in the utility stuff with utility scale projects, commercial builds, and then residential. So experience in SA, neighbouring countries, and into Africa, predominantly on projects there. But
right. And tonight we are talking about the structural side and not the electrical side. So that's good. That's good that's your background. Because I think we think about sort of the big three components. We're going to choose our modules, our inverter, our batteries, and everything else is balance of system, or maybe we don't even think about it. But, we're talking about the foundation of a system, just like foundational garments, anything, the skeleton of anything. So if you've got the fanciest of the inverters, batteries and modules, why would you not give the same thought to the foundation of that system, right?
100%. 100%. And another thing that gets often overlooked, and I know it's not my expertise, but is cable. Cabling is quite expensive in the balance of system and often gets underrated, mind the pun there, because it's been installed in a mediocre fashion. But on the mounting side, definitely, I mean, if you look at your balance of system and the value of mounting in the balance of system, it's a very small percentage. So we often see that installers are trying to save cost on a system where it's not necessarily the highest percentage of your system cost.
Well, they could almost be the big five then: modules, inverters, batteries, mounting, and cable. Maybe those are the big five of solar.
Yeah.
So does that happen then? You know, the guy goes to the client, and I mean, is mounting structure just a nice to have? Is it an optional extra?
I often feel and sense that is the case. I think it's the last time, and you know, I haven't done surveys or anything as such, but if you just drive around, I don't know, I've got this natural eye to find solar systems on roofs, even when many can't see them, and you can often see it. And also, as you say, you know, those three main components: inverters, batteries, modules. The guys come looking for that, they buy the stuff, and then they're like, oh, now we've got to put this in. Oh, and we'll just find whatever. Or a lot of end users just, well, we'll make something up ourselves.
Yeah.
And sure, you can, but how much time and energy is that really going to
Time
cost
and
you?
energy, and system leading to system failures, I'm sure, if we're going to speak about that as well. What are the consequences?
Definitely. I mean, I've seen the most interesting solutions, very creative, especially in Africa, for mounting rocks and bricks. I've seen quite a lot
On the panels.
on the panels.
Okay.
And I mean, just besides the fact that there's not enough weight or ballast holding those panels down, so they can blow away if there's gusts of wind, or even just slide down off roofs, there's other elements of losses, which is shading, which is production losses. So they go hand in hand. You know, you often see panels, sliding off rails, which is also quite scary. So that's even with mounting.
That you haven't seen in South Africa.
I have.
Oh, you have seen that in South Africa.
I've seen it all. And the other thing, while we're on there, I think a lot of like homemade systems are made out of metal, just normal metal that people can buy from hardware stores, etc. And that's got a high degree of corrosion, rust that occurs. And you know, on the reef inland, one always thinks, oh, it doesn't rust, it's going to last. It does. And we see failures, you know, from 3 to 5 years of the corrosion of those metals.
Did you say it's metal? What metal? Because mounting structure is also metal. So what are we talking about?
Indeed, yes, yeah. So it's iron metal or galvanized metal, and normally it's just coated galvanizing, which isn't a very thick layer, which the galvanizing protects it against the rust, but it still will over time corrode. The metals that generally are used are higher quality aluminium, stainless steel, very specific to Renusol. We use something called zinc nickel, which is highly corrosive resistant. It's passed all tests and exceeded the tests in Europe for corrosion resistance. And one also has to look at also the metals being used with each other. So you get something called galvanic corrosion. So
like
that's
the frame of the solar module now.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the frame of the solar module is aluminium. The best mounting structure is aluminium rails to complement the two metals. When you have something like metal or lightly galvanized metal, you start to get a reaction between the galvanized metal and the aluminium, which then enhances corrosion and basically rusts the two components away because the metals transfer internally. I'm not a scientist, but I've seen it time and time again. Coastal areas as well. We see many installations still using metal or lightly galvanized metal. And if you're looking at galvanized products, it's better to look at hot dipped galvanized products that are dipped after the full completion of the manufacturing of that component. Because often they dip them and then still go and drill all the holes or cut them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you've ruined the integrity of that.
Yeah, you compromise the sealing nature of the galvanizing.
And what about the inherent strength of a purpose-built piece of mounting rail as opposed to a piece of aluminium that I'm just going to extruded aluminium. It looks the same.
Yeah, go buy it at the hardware store, and it's $50 a rail, and we pop it in. Yeah, and I think there's different grades of aluminium. I won't go into the technical details of that, but lower grade aluminiums will bend easier, they'll fracture easier, and they obviously don't have the tensile strength. So the grades of aluminium and also the way the profile is manufactured gives it strength. Much like a car, when you've got a car door with all those pretty shapes and forms, most of those shapes and forms are actually to strengthen the panels. In the same way, the rails are manufactured that way. So you want to use higher grade aluminium. You want to make sure that it's profiled correctly. And then even with some of the product that's supplied in the market currently, there's very low levels of testing. What testing standards are there to ensure that when you put that rail on the roof, it's already at the right level of being able to handle the stresses, the wind loads, the vibration movements, and even, I mean, we never think of snow loads in this country, but there are in certain areas snow, but hail loads that do come from time to time. And we see systems,
disastrous.
Yeah. So Renusol has very high levels of testing standards. So all our products are tested. So I mean, they'll go under stress tests. So just in simple terms, you know, there'll be loads on the clamps, on the rails, pushing them and pulling them to make sure that they can handle those forces way beyond what they would experience on the roof with the modules. Because remember, a module is creating a whole, like a sail of a boat. So when the wind catches that module, it can lift the whole system up.
So you want it raised enough that not too much heat builds up under that module, but not so much that it becomes a sail as well.
So now you're talking another level as well. So you're talking the system as a whole. Because, I mean, we see systems, I mean, I've seen many, even they use brand ring, which is 38 by 38 wood beams, and they sort of try to drill those to tiles or even glue them to tiles, and then they screw the modules on those. Now that will rot and peel away over time. But if you're using the correct mounting system, then, so we were talking about the heights. So now you're only getting a small clearance for the module for airflow. So if you understand, and again, this is where training and understanding is so important from the ground level up, that you understand the fundamentals of how systems work, how those components work. You've got this key component, one of the big three, as you mentioned, being the solar panel, but it needs certain parameters to work. And it works best when it's cooler. And to be cooler, it needs a certain clearance. And manufacturers have warranties on those clearance levels for the back sheets. So we will then manufacture products, if it's a tile bracket, that will give enough clearance from the roof to give that airflow, but still not compromise the integrity of the tile bracket. So it has to be obviously stronger and have more tensile strength to handle that additional height. We'll design certain clamps or brackets to go on roofs that will have those heights, but then will also be structurally sound. Because when a mounting system sits, or a solar system sits on a roof, it becomes one integral component. So you've got 10 panels, they effectively become one big system.
Array,
and that adds to the integrity of the system. So if you have a failure anywhere along that line, it can cause the whole system to then collapse.
I didn't think about voiding a warranty on your module from something as silly as not silly, but not having enough space behind it to ensure that it stays.
So, I mean, space behind it is important for voiding warranty. Positioning where you mount your panel, so the positions that you mount your mounting structure to the panel are very key. Clamping zones, correct. And then the type of clamps. I mean, you want to have enough pressure on the panel to hold it down so that it doesn't move over time with vibrations, but not too much to buckle it, or it can shatter the glass inside the frame, which I've seen often.
But your system all works together. You've got the rails, you've got the clamps. They all come from the same provider. Renusol.
We manufacture, we import most of our products. Our rails are extruded locally. So we've got a local partner for that, and we specify the standards, the aluminium material, which is actually very specific. So they have a special,
It's nice
basically
to know that there's
batch of
production
materials.
going
Yeah.
on here. Okay.
And we've got a couple of our molds already in place for commercial projects if there's requirement for local content. So there's quite a few products we can scale up very quickly for local content requirements, but we do predominantly import.
I find it so interesting that you said to me that the design, you cut a cross section and you look at that cross section of that mounting rail. It's not just because there is a reason behind every bend and turn in there.
Every bend and turn, and we measure them. I mean, with Hulamin, we regularly will do production tests at random, pull rails, have them come through. We'll measure them to spec, and if they're not in spec, either the die needs to be adjusted or there needs to be adjustments done in their process. That can be temperature, a whole lot. So there's a whole lot. It's not just go, okay, set up a factory, run a couple of rails through, use whichever aluminium, cure it at the wrong temperature, and then pop it on a roof. There's so many failure points.
And it's where in Joburg, Eastland, where's that?
Hulamin's in, where we manufacture is in Pietermaritzburg.
Okay.
So that's our main manufacturing. Yeah.
So it's not just an optional extra or a nice to have. It is an integral part of the solar system. I think we're discovering that, especially with your panels, if you want them to realize their warranties from the manufacturers. So what does an installer do when he goes to the client and the client says, that's outside of my budget? Because I think I know where he would try and save money, which is on the mounting, on the cable, like you said before. But what are the consequences of that, for instance?
So I mean, let's dive into that. I think when a client comes to look at a solar system, he's going to typically go, and we see it more and more now, to get more and more quotes. So he would go to one or two installers and ask for proposals, and typically they look at price. They don't. I won't say they don't understand the technology. I definitely have seen the knowledge base of end users understanding the technology and the requirements and what they want out of it has evolved a lot. But price becomes a big factor for the homeowner. It's a big investment. He's typically having to take out money from his bond or some sort of savings he's put aside to build the system. So I go back to training. It's fundamental that an installer coming to have an engagement with the client firstly understands what he's looking at. What is the client looking for? Because the solar system is about cost saving, it's about energy security, obviously the combination of both, and then there's always a budget. And if an installer doesn't understand the fundamentals of how solar works, he wouldn't necessarily be able to explain to a client why it's better to spend a little bit more or how. So, I mean, you look at a system, what do you see on a solar system when you drive down the streets? You see the panels and the mounting.
Yes.
Okay, the mounting's more hidden, but ultimately the biggest...
you'll see if it's quality or not, because it's not level here, or it's,
You've obviously seen those.
Yeah.
And I think we'll go back into that. But going back to the cost point with the end user, an installer will have then typically maybe bought an inverter, or he works with an inverter brand. Modules can differ, but they might also have their specific brand and batteries that will all sort of bundle together. So yes, where's he going to save cost? He's maybe going to cut some of his labor costs, but he's going to try and cut material costs because he's still going to pay his bills.
More time on site, though, if he cuts some of his labor costs, more time on site, maybe.
Maybe, but if he buys an inferior mounting structure, he'll definitely spend more time on site. So he's got to weigh that up. So typically, yes, they'll go balance of system. Where can I cut costs? Maybe I can change some, swap, or leave out some fusing or some surge protection. Put thinner cables in. And mounting structure comes in very often, and we see, we'll leave out some brackets, some tile brackets, or some triangles if it's a tilted system, what we call trisol. But what they're not realizing is they're compromising the whole system, because now that element that's exposed, not to the electrical and internal, but exposed to the elements outside, is now typically compromised. And that's where we see a lot of installers trying to cut costs on something that's maybe 8 to 10% of the system value. So they're not saving a lot there. And in buying inferior product, it's probably costing them more time. So looking at the time value of money.
So what are the alternatives for this installer whose client has said, you've gone beyond my budget? What are his alternatives then? And I think this is where maybe you could speak about your I don't know if you want to speak about your planning tool at this point, if that makes sense. But
I think we can go into the planning tool maybe a little later.
Okay.
But I think where you're going is, if I'm an installer and I'm sitting with a client and I've proposed X and the client's willing to come back to me and say, it's too expensive, how can I save costs?
Yeah.
The installer can then rather look at going to the client and saying, look, why don't we look? Because if you can sell the system and understand what the quality means to the client and to himself, because there's a lot of risk to him. If those modules take off,
Absolutely.
fall off the roof, cause the roof to collapse because of load points, that has a lot of consequences for everybody involved. So he could rather than explain to the client there's value in adding these additional components, there's value in using this higher quality mounting structure because it's certified. So why don't we rather scale the system? Why don't we rather start here with a smaller system? Go modular. Modules can be added. Batteries can be added. Look at the client's need. What does he want first? Does he need the energy security first or the cost saving first? And then start to work around that. So maybe leave out a battery.
And don't compromise on the quality.
Yeah, because you don't need to do it all at once. And that way he builds a rapport with the client and potentially has another job in a year's time when the client's got more money to add on. And he's built confidence and trust with that client. But it takes time and experience for the installer to be able to sell that argument to the client, not just sell on price.
But solar's never been a set it and forget it. Even if you did install the system of the client's dreams at that time, you don't just do it once and then never see the client again. So forming a relationship
is key.
It really is key.
And I think that way as well, I mean, for us as Renusol, that's a very key part of what we do, is form a relationship with our installers, help them along the way, guide them along the way, support them along the way to help them understand and help them sell and help them design better systems.
Okay, and how do you help them design these systems? Now you can tell me about your tool, right?
So Renusol has a PV configurator, so it's a design tool that's free, so it's online. You go to the Renusol website, you can download the PV configurator, you just register yourself basically with your email, and you can start designing the mechanical elements of a system. It's got databases of solar panels, mounting structure, load capacities, wind loads, ballast loads, all pre-calculated. So you start to design your system and it will assist you in designing it. It will bring out your bill of materials, so how many tile brackets you need, how many rail lengths, joiners, clamps, etc. So on bigger systems, that's always really nice because a lot of people can do it manually.
Yeah.
But then you've got it on file, you've got it on record, you can refer back to it, and it gives you a beautiful report with the SANS regulations, wind load testing, panel you've selected, design layout, which is also nice if you're a salesperson and you've got an installation team, they can just use that document to install. So all of that's integrated, and what's really beautiful about the tool is we've now recently integrated PVSol and OpenSolar, which OpenSolar in South Africa is a very, very popular tool and it's growing in popularity. So you can start your design on OpenSolar or PVSol, you save those files, and you open our PV configurator, you can literally drag and drop those files in and it will already start to pre-populate and design your system. With that, we offer a 20-year warranty. So when you build your system with a PV configurator and you use the components it's giving you to use, because you're working with the system as a whole,
you get the warranty.
You get a 20-year warranty with all our mounting systems. So it's really nice. Modules generally have a 20-year warranty. Now your mounting will as well, and you can rest assured that everything you've done on your client's roof, especially if you've installed it correctly, but at least from a materials perspective, it's not going to corrode, it's not going to deteriorate, and it's going to stand the test of time, especially in ISA elements.
20 years for a module, that's not the performance lifetime, it's just if anything fails in that time, because they do.
Yeah, generally, look, I mean, most modules will have 80% performance guarantee over roughly 20 to 25 years. So yeah, I mean, your panels will be producing well beyond 20 years. But again, going to sort of that relationship part, there's a whole lot of elements that come with improving, redesigning, repowering solar systems. But
what did people do before mounting structure was invented? Did they not put them on their roofs?
well,
It seems like the baby of the family, maybe, right?
no, I mean there's always been mounting structure as such.
Okay.
I think I like the question. Because there's always been ways people have had to put panels up. I mean, even today at lodges and things, they still use like log beams, etc. to mount panels,
Right.
especially as the upright beams. But I think where mounting, and I can't speak because I wasn't there when that happened,
No.
although I've been in the industry a long time, I think there's been a lot of evolution in mounting structure. But I think the big things that came in is how can you be more efficient on site? This is something that really needs to grow, this aspect in South Africa where one can be more efficient on site and also trust what you're putting in. So how can we make this whole thing assemble quicker? How can we make our components integrate with each other, that we've got a multitude of solutions and options for the various different rooftops? Because every home is unique, every system is pretty unique.
Is putting the mounting structure on roofs one of the most labor-intensive parts of an installation? Does it take up quite a considerable amount of time?
It does.
If you haven't planned it, if you aren't using the right product, and
yes, it can take up a lot of time, and it's also quite manually intensive, especially the module weights of 20 to 26 kilograms generally, laying out the roof. And making sure the roof is sound, right? I think this is something overlooked.
well,
a lot of
how do you tell that? How do you know if the roof that you want to install on? Sorry, I'm trying to find my notes here. Yeah. How do you even know that? You're an installer. Do you have to call in an structural engineer? Start me off with this client. I just
Well,
got
you
to
wouldn't
look
necessarily.
at Google Images, right?
Yeah, that's what a lot does. A lot of quotes are done on Google Images, or I got this quote. Please, can you compare and beat it? There's a lot of that, and no one's been to site. No one's looked at what's around the property, the building, etc. So, go to site. For sales, so non-technical individuals and technical individuals, that you can download on our website. 2 templates for tilted roofs, so normal sloped roofs, whichever type, metal, concrete tiles, clay tiles, whatever, and then for flat roofs. And these templates are basically a on-site inspection and design form. So you would just download them, print them out, go to site, and you can put in all your measurements, etc. But going back to your question, I mean, you have to look at surrounds. What trees are around, what buildings are around, where's your shadowing, where's your shading, all of those sort of things.
That's for the performance of the panels,
system.
right? But
then when it comes to the structure,
yeah.
have a look at the roofs. Have a look at the if it's metal or wood. I mean, a lot of the homes, and that's a lot of the audience we're speaking to, it's wooden structural roofs, and a lot of those homes are old, they're rotten. Even industrial and commercial sites, the wood is rotten. And when you go to site, you can only see that on site, and the clients won't know that. Sometimes you need to go into the roof itself and inspect. And when you get to that point, then you realize, wait, now it's time for the engineers. Not electrical engineers, but structural engineers to come in and inspect. Can this roof handle the weight? Because you can get to a ton very, very quickly with the solar system on a roof. So have a look at that. Even new buildings. What I've seen a lot is new buildings are using less material. Thinner material.
Yeah.
And when you build a structure, we have a lot of innovative products, and one of those things is short rails or mini rails for sheet metal roofs. But now if you look at the sheet metal roofs, they're typically using less beams, thinner beams, and our wood in this country is a lot less dense. It's fast grown, weak pine. So that's where you should rather be then building a rail system on that, because now you get a whole structure.
The load.
Exactly.
Because the rafters and the beams, the trusses, they're only made to hold up the weight of the roof substrate, not to have a whole nother system
layer
on top
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah. So new buildings and old buildings both need to be checked for weight, for load capabilities. And like I say, a lot of new ones cannot handle the loads, and a lot of old ones are rotten. And then you get old roofs which are solid as nails.
But it doesn't mean that they can't then have solar. They will then maybe do a carport or a ground-mounted something.
Well, even using that roof, as I said, if it's got smaller beams, etc., one can build a system that actually makes that substrate, that substructure stronger by using rails. We have various thicknesses of rails for different spans or strengths or wind loads.
So you don't need to turn that job down necessarily, but you need to go to the pros and you need to get the product.
Yeah, and you need to explain to the client, look, we can do this system for you, but we need to build it right, so that your system doesn't sit in your lounge or on top of your car or in your neighbor's property.
Because you wanted to speak to that, the time value of money. Oh, have I got that? Have I got that the right way around?
Yes, time value of money.
Yes. Talk to me about the time value of money and how the proper mounting system can
help with that.
Yeah, save you time and save you money.
So I think there's a few things around that. I think firstly, if you look at mounting systems, and there's been some very interesting designs historically, and fortunately they've improved. Not necessarily from us, but from various individuals in the industry that have been creative. And it can take a lot of fiddling and work to get tile brackets on and then try align rails and get everything to work, because especially in SA, roofs aren't very straight.
Tile brackets are one of the more difficult ones, right? Tiled roofs.
They can be.
In terms of dexterity and just skills training. Would you say it's the more difficult of?
Yes, I think it is more.
You need the right training.
You need the right training, you need the right expertise, and I think practice is good. And I mean, bringing back to you guys, I've seen your roofs, and you have these multiple roofs that individuals that are interested in the industry can go and get the training and actually physically climb on the roof that's only about a meter off the ground and go and practice and get experience. Because I mean, that's the thing with a tiled roof, you're working at a 20 to 30 degree pitch,
high off the ground.
Then
so
you've got
saying that they're
so trusses. I mean, aging of roofs, adding onto buildings, all these things affect the profile of the roof, and you've got to get these modules and these rails nice and straight. And we, for example, we've got nice notched tile brackets. Our tile brackets have little grooves, and the rails have grooves, and those align, so it's not this matter of you adjust one side and slips off there. And those tiny little grooves make alignment quick and easy. Our bolts are stainless steel that they can slot in anywhere along the rail. You just slot and turn them 90 degrees, they lock in. You don't need to put it in on one end and slide it all the way to the other end, and then it slides back out. Simple things like that can save you a lot of time. Obviously there's methodology. We've got great installation guidelines and instructions on all our products online that go to the detail. Lots of tips and tricks there. But I think, going back to your point, you can save a lot of time where it might take you 5 or 6 hours to install a couple of modules on a roof, because you're fiddling with these tile brackets and trying to get everything to align and level, and tile brackets that don't fit in nicely. Our tile brackets are adjustable, they're easy to install, like I say, they're slotted. We also have a new tile bracket which is completely variably adjustable. And now with this tile bracket, so it can go up and down, left and right, so it's got a wider range of height and width. I think it's somewhere around 20% more range.
Right.
And the tile bracket itself is actually 25% stronger. So now we're going back to the quality and cost saving things. So this tile bracket is 25% stronger, which means if you design your system with our PV configurator, you can use less tile brackets.
Okay.
So you actually end up saving money and time, because every tile bracket you put in is time and money. So you, instead of, say for example, putting 10 in a row, you might be putting in 5. Obviously you've got to check that the rail is aligned, etc. So it can take the space. It's possible,
and that is a way to go back to your client and say, okay, I can make a plan.
I can make a plan. I'm using better, higher quality products. I'm not compromising on the certification and the level of quality of material, but the materials that I'm using I will install quicker. So I can maybe reduce my labor cost. I need less material, so I'll save a little bit of money there, and that way you can get to cost savings through our innovation.
So I was thinking if a roof was uneven that you would then have to use a short rail because they can't sit at the same height, but you're saying that that's not.
Well, it wouldn't
so.
work because then the module's got to sit all squonky. And on the short rail, that's typically for your metal roofs. So if you've got a corrugated roof or a sheet metal roof, you can use short rails.
Okay.
And again, in SA, our materials that are used for our sheet metal roofs are generally a lot thinner and weaker than most European countries.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, so you also need to look very carefully if short rails is actually the right solution. And short rails are often only attached to the roof material, so the metal
Not
sheeting,
the
not the substructure. So then you look at something rather like hanger bolts and rails, which will then give you structural integrity on the structure, on the roof structure, and on the metal roof sheeting, especially if it's older sheeting or thinner sheeting. Again, site inspections are key. Take photos, have a look at it, and bring in engineers if necessary. They have the expertise, they know what to look for, and they will guide you and the system and save you potential liability claims.
I just don't think people think about this. They don't think about placing that extra load on top of their roof. And
No.
can it take it?
And I mean, even if you look at how they install them, so I mean, a lot of the focus in the market, and we mentioned it in the intro, you know, is now around the electrical standards and the regulations around that.
That's all that anyone speaks about when they hear about solar, right?
Yeah. And in other countries, they've got electrical standards and let's call it the mounting structure standards for installation and tests and requirements. There are some SANS regulations regarding buildings in SA, but there's nothing that's specific to solar on mounting structure. And as a solar installer, depending on what your background is, like myself, if I was installing, obviously I'd have the mechanical background and expertise to focus on that. Others might have the electrical expertise.
Yes.
Some of them have no expertise because they come from different industries. So again, training is important to understand because those are all specialist fields. Because with solar now, you've got the battery side, so you've got high voltage, low voltage, DC, you've got the AC side, you've got all the software and the programming in it now, so it's a really exciting space to be, but
There's
lots of
a lot of
different
facets.
expertise
Yeah.
need to be incorporated.
And
So
it
it's,
doesn't have to be in one person. One person doesn't have to be all those experts. Team up with skilled people.
yeah. And that's what I see. I see installers that do well typically have a few guys of different expertise that can focus on different areas better. You know, I look at areas where there's very strict electrical standards adhered to, but when you still drive around, you're still seeing very interesting
Bricks.
installations. Well, maybe not bricks. Generally, those areas don't have bricks, although, yeah, I saw bricks the other day for something else. But yes, and you know, one has to look, how did the system get installed this way? You know, I call them little ears. You know, you've got these corners of modules sticking out of the ridge of the roof, or modules under pressure in valleys, because obviously they've done these designs off-site or online,
Or didn't.
So now they've quoted the customer X amount of panels and they've got to fit them on, and they fit them on, come hell or high water. I mean, you see panels on the wrong side of the roof. You see a whole array and then one or two that side because that's where they could fit them.
They had them in them and they're going to go somewhere.
And that puts a lot of strain on the modules over time. And typically those installs are using inferior mounting structure. So now you've got this additional strain on the mounting structure because this module is either pushing up or pushing down, which breaks tiles. So you have tiles break, which creates water leaks, which creates ceiling damage, which creates carpet damage claims, etc. Those mounting structures pop and fail because they don't have the integrity of components used. So it just starts to almost snowball into
Talking about water ingress, so that can come from the mountain structure and the tiles being straight, but also the guy who's not really clued up, he's going to punch a hole in the roof
pressure points are right as well, you can still damage it there. But let's talk into those where you have to drill into sheet grooves. What Renusol has that defines it from many products out there, all our short rails or components that are intended for metal roofs already come pre-lined with the EPDM rubber foam. So EPDM, unlike rubber will perish, and especially in the high felt with our temperatures, 1 to 2, maybe 3 years. It will crack, it will perish, it will leak. The guys use bitumen, all these sort of things, and all those products fail very quickly. EPDM has a temperature range of minus 40 to 130 degrees Celsius, so it's going to cover the whole range of temperature fluctuations that a system is going to go through. It has a 50-year plus lifespan, so it won't perish, it won't degrade for the lifespan of that system, because generally by then I'm sure there'll be upgrades or changes. And even our roof screws, our self-drilling, self-tapping screws, which are bimetal, by the way, they have two metal components, but we'll stick to the rubber, or we can go back there, is also got a EPDM foam or rubber seal. So the seal sits above the aluminium rail, and then we've got a seal under the aluminium, so it's double sealed on both sides.
Washer.
Like a washer. So again, I mean, the guys can go to site. They don't need to pre-drill our rails because our self-drilling screws will drill the holes. We have grooves in our components, so you don't need to figure out where you're going to put it. You place it in at a line, drill it in, and go.
Okay.
Sometimes the guys are having to then put silicone in or do this MacGyver trick or that trick to try cover up for leaks or whatever. Ours seals, settles, done, and it's all pre-tested in various environments to make sure it's watertight.
I'd be livid. I mean, I'd be so excited about my system, and then it would soon turn to irritation when I saw those marks on my ceiling or whatever.
Yeah. And I've heard of many such tragedies, if I can call them that. Yeah.
I think just to touch on, neither of us are in the insurance industry, and I wish we actually need to chat to someone from the insurance industry and just what you could potentially be opening your business up to as an installer or your clients up to as a homeowner when you're not knowledgeable, you're taking chances, you using inferior products.
Yeah, I think the insurance industry, and we slowly engaging with them more and more. Again, a lot of the focus that they've placed on solar systems, they're becoming stricter and stricter is on the electrical side.
Yes.
Rightfully so. I mean, even load shedding has a big impact on insurers. So there's a lot of focus and requirements they're expecting from solar installations to ensure they're insured.
Compliant from the electrical side.
Yeah, but there's not enough awareness on the structural failures at this point. And, we spoke about it, and I can show you numerous pictures, even where I live. I've seen modules go next door or over the wall to the next complex, and it's quite scary. And again, it's not our expertise, but we are starting to look at this from our side to see where we can help the insurers start to look at it from their risk portfolio side and say, why are we insuring these solar systems and only focusing on X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
We need to look at the system as a whole. I mean, there's risks of modules being stolen, which is a reality, but also from a structural side, we're seeing roofs collapse, we're seeing these modules fly away. Why are we insuring them if we don't know how they're being kept on these roofs?
If we don't know where they're going to be in a week's time, because they floated away.
They weren't stolen, they just moved themselves, or were moved by the wind.
So yeah, they also need to be educated. I mean, some of our trainings we gear towards real estate professionals or people in insurance and underwriting.
Well, that's one you say. I mean, you talk about real estates. You're seeing estates that are homeowners associations and especially sectional title complexes where the roofs are not owned by the homeowners, they're owned by the complex.
That's right.
And they are engaging much more around these topics because they're trying to understand the real risks about adding solar, or individuals in sectional title homes wanting to add solar. And how that relates to, obviously, what they call a PQ, or the usage per owner, but also the risks for those roofs, because they're responsible for the roofs. But now the homeowner is putting on solar, and they're going, well, where are we transferring risk here? So they see it from a very similar point of view. Homeowners associations are a little bit different, because they would typically own the systems, and the individual owners are all independent. But they're also looking at it from risk, because they have their own buildings and they're seeing these issues come up.
I think we're going to see a focus on that soon as well, in addition to the electrical side.
You can see it coming very slowly, but there's definitely a shift.
We were busy doing some training yesterday, so you still train end users?
Yeah, so I mean, we do, let's say, lighter entry level training with yourselves as the academies for the learners there. We also train together with our partners, so Season Solar, a solar inverter warehouse, and Innovatic are distributors of ours, and we will train their clients. We don't sell or supply to end users, all through our distributors, but we support end users. So in the training sessions, we'll train various levels of installers and integrators, and often those installers or integrators will relate back to us as Renusol directly afterwards, especially with support with our PV configurator and getting going with design and the structural support, and that's where we engage wholeheartedly. So we do support end users where necessary in being installers, but we also support the sales and technical teams of our distributors.
Yes, you train them too. Yeah. But look, what we do, it's a more general solar training,
correct,
whether it's the PV mounted training or the design. But there is still product training. There's a place for training on the components that you prefer to work with, and that is what you're doing. And that is the mark of a great company, the after-sales service, the support that you offer, the ongoing training.
It's very important to us. I mean, our philosophy of simple, solid service, a lot of that is around, like I said, quality, but quality relates to continuous innovation.
The relationship, okay.
Yeah, innovation, because we need to be innovating our products all the time to keep up with new standards, to keep up with new roof types, to improve them, to get better at what we do, to make them quicker and easier to use, higher quality, cost saving. So those three elements, durability, innovation, simplicity of installation are very key to our innovation. And what we've been doing now around the country is specific around new products like our RH1 hook that's fully adjustable, and our new FS Pro systems. These are new design systems where, like the FS Pro, it comes it comes predominantly pre-assembled. So you're going to save 30% time on doing a flat roof tilted system, because you just put it down, pop it up, and assemble it. And these great innovations are really appreciated by our clients. It's been really good at the moment going around doing this training and seeing the excitement around the installers about these new products.
And you said the hooks and the clamps, they come from Europe, but the rails are
locally extruded, yes.
Something I'd like to know is what sort of roof type is predominant in Germany. Renusol is a German company.
Correct.
What is the predominant roof type in Germany? Wooden trusses and tiles, or what?
Trusses and tiles in Germany and UK are very big. South Africa is a little bit more diverse depending on the region. So sheet metal roofs and clip lock are becoming more popular.
Yeah.
The Cape quite a lot. Tile roofs are still.
Cost? What do you think it is for cost, or just the look, or trends? Okay.
Yeah, it's trends, it's look, it's costs.
But you've got a solution for it.
All of them. We've got 3 million components.
Something for the thatch?
Yes, we do. We have a very innovative solution for thatch. Please don't put it on your roof. Asbestos and thatch are not made for any sort of tampering. And there are other solutions for that, but they're not on the roofs.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, we see that. I mean, you go back to, I was talking about the simple bricks and things, wires holding panels down, and you see that typically on thatch, is wires through the thatch to the trusses hooked on.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah, by a plan in Africa.
Okay. So, if you want to come and see some of the mounting structures, some of the systems that Christopher has mentioned tonight, You can find them in our academies, and our Joburg and Centurion academies have got some of your latest stuff.
Cape Town.
And Cape Town. And so come and do a training with us, like a PV mounted training or your Super Solar School PV Green Card training, and you'll work on the real product that you will be working with in the real world. And then you can decide for yourself, I like this system, you know, come and get a real world feel for it.
And I might even be there during one of your training sessions.
Some of you might have met Christopher. He comes and joins the classes for a little bit of an info and a networking session. And this is what I wanted to say. This is what makes Green so different. It's the connection between yourself and other installers, between yourself and the industry. And Christopher is very active and very accessible, and very grateful that you came and did this evening.
No, it's been great, and I hope it's been of value to all those that have been listening and those that will listen over time. And I'm sure we'll be doing something soon again.
Thank you. I would enjoy that.